started a 4-hour class on motivation and influence with the words, if you came here to learn how to motivate your team, I am sorry to say you won't, because you can't motivate people. There were some awkward chuckles, there were some sideways glances, but after that, the class actually learned what to do instead. Because the truth is, you can't motivate your team, but you can encourage them to motivate themselves. Now, if this is feeling like deja vu, there was an earlier blog on this. There was an earlier YouTube video on this called You Can't Motivate People. And you learned how to encourage motivation with the 3 C's. You learned to get clear, to get curious, and then to get communicating. But over the next few weeks, we are going to break down each one of these and look at each one of these C's on a deeper level so that you can make the most of the motivation on your team. Let's start at the beginning. What is motivation? What does it mean to encourage your team to motivate themselves? And why is clarity so important to that? If you want to really start at the beginning, then I would encourage you to click the link below for that previous YouTube video. But for now, I need you to just remember the definition. Motivation is the reason or reasons someone has for acting or behaving in a particular way. Today, what we're focused on is that particular way. We will get to the reason or the reasons that each person would have to decide to take action. And that's what we focused on in that previous blog as well. But for right now, we need to know what that action is. Now, motivation, even as recently as the early 2000s, was much more clear-cut on the particular way, on the direction that we wanted people to move in. As a leader 20, 30 years ago, and really any time in the pre-information age, change took so much longer to occur that you might only have 3 to 5 initiatives for a business in, say, 2005. Whereas in 2025, there are countless goals and completed initiatives, not to mention all of the starts and stops that you would happen along the way. And when this happens, the direction you're getting gets murky. Let's look at one of the giants, because this affects everyone, from fast-growing startups to really established companies, like the largest company in the early 2000s. And it's still thriving today. Walmart was an international brand in the year 2000, and it had an online retail presence for years prior to that point. Think about that. In the 90s, Walmart had this international online retail presence. They were early to market, to say nothing less. And they were early to market in those areas and in several others. So you would fully expect them to have a focus on leadership and change management during that time. And they absolutely did. Walmart's annual report in 2000 spent almost half of their total 20 pages in that report focused on leadership and anticipating and moving with change. Fast forward to 2025, and Walmart's latest annual report is 100 pages long. And it has a QR code on the front so that you can get a message from their CEO, which is really what over half of that old report was focused on. There's so much going on at Walmart in this past year that it took 100 pages of forms, charts, and reports to summarize everything that they've done and achieved. Scrolling through that report is enough to give you anxiety from the overwhelm of information. It's kind of crazy. I actually don't recommend it unless you want to fact check me, then go ahead. But Attempting to actually act on all of that without clarity is absolutely going to leave you in a short circuit of nothing getting accomplished. But they do act on it. Walmart employees are able to accomplish everything in those 100 pages that's at about point 0.9 font. They did that all in 2024 because they could make those goals incredibly clear to every single person impacted. And if they can do that as a giant of a company like Walmart, then you can do that on your team as well. Maybe Walmart feels like too big of an example. Maybe you're not even sure what a clear goal would look like within your specific organization. But I bet you do have an example. So let's take this a little bit closer to home. Imagine you have this complete Saturday open. Now, I don't know about for you, but for me, those are absolute gold. And so you have dubbed this Spring Cleaning Saturday. Now, your kids, your husband, even you probably have a long list of things you would rather be doing than spring cleaning. Maybe your son wants to do some batting practice with his buddies. Maybe your husband has projects he wants to tinker with in the garage. Or your daughter had planned to grab some coffee and go window shopping with her friends. You have things that you'd want to be doing too, like yoga, reading, scrolling, any of that. But you know that you can earn that downtime, you and everybody else in the household, if this spring cleaning gets done. You could say something like, you can do your thing and I'll do mine once this house is clean, and leave it at that. Or you could unify everyone around one clear goal, saying something like, we have been living day in and day out in this house for months through the winter. It is time to get it ready for all of the things like sleepovers and team parties and just do some general maintenance. You all declutter, scrub down, and vacuum up your bedrooms and bathrooms, and I will tackle the common areas. We can just toss what we don't need, we can organize what we want to keep, then we'll wash the walls and the switches, we'll scrub the drawers, then we'll vacuum. I will shampoo the carpets everywhere once I have the kitchen and the living room and the halls done. Which one of those two things do you think would get you more complaints? Which one would get you more questions, more pushback? Yes, I understand that listing off every single thing that needs to get done might make your kids roll their eyes. It might make your husband try to convince you that what's in the garage is actually important too. But once they have clarity around what is expected in cleaning the house, they can actually motivate themselves to get that work done. Whereas in that first vague directive, they aren't able to actually see themselves doing any of the work. That second option says the same thing as the first, but it shows you how you can work much better. It gives you a focus on clarity. Let's break down why that one works better. Clarity prevents confusion. Now, everyone has a different definition of what clean looks like, and they don't know why they should care about your definition, right? Just like everyone has a different definition of efficient, customer friendly, or even accurate. So, your son may never have considered that he needs to declutter his closet for a team party. And the first step in getting him motivated to get it done is to make sure that he's aware of that as a need. A silly example, but it's really no different at work. When you ask Susie to escalate issues that she sees, she has no idea what kind of issues you mean. People will feel like that's a supportive, kind, connecting thing to say. Just tell me if you run into any issues. But did you want to hear that that coworker of hers was coming in late? Should she escalate that the processing software is slow today? No, what you wanted to hear was if there were gaps in the process that you had trained her on. You can avoid frustration on both sides by expressly telling her what you want to hear about. She can feel empowered to identify problems and solutions without bogging you down with reports that you never actually needed. Think about how much time would be wasted if you just flat told her, let me know if you run into any issues. And she keeps, imagine how much time would be wasted if you said, let me know if you run into any issues. And she just kept bringing you things that you never needed to know about. Now, that lack of clarity most often comes up when leaders have a dominant attribute of connection. They want to build that relationship, they want to feel like they're on the same playing field with that employee. So they do say things like, let me know if you run into any issues, which is nice. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it. But if you have an intent and what you actually want, then you need to be clear because relationships at work are built around that clarity on the job. Just like Brene Brown says, clear is kind. And you develop that strong working relationship with that clarity. When you're clear, people are able to hit your expectations. Your team not only has an idea of what you want, but knows exactly how to deliver on it, which really means that you get higher level results in less time because no one is wasting time guessing and making mistakes on what you wanted. One operations director was training a brand new employee. The express clarity that she gave this new employee on how to identify and bring up problems meant that they could stop errors in their tracks. She used to have to take months to catch errors because she would get them on a quarterly report. And then now it would take simply days because this new employee was developing the skill of problem solving because she had clarity around what she was looking for. Okay, the next part of being clear is clarity on the goal creates a problem to be solved. I'm going to say that again. Having clarity on the goal creates a problem to be solved. One of the best ways to unify a group is to have a common enemy. In our home example, that enemy could have been mean old mom who makes us clean. Or in that second example of how I rolled that out, the enemy is the grime of winter that we can all rally against. When you have a single problem, you become the team that can solve that problem together. Think of that time that the state came in to audit you, and your whole team had to work together to create a unified answer. Or maybe the time that the system crashed and you had to handle all those customer calls without being able to see any of their files. Think about those first few weeks of COVID when everything was shut down and you all went home to work, but you didn't actually know what it meant to work from home. Suddenly, we were all crystal clear on keeping the lights on and making sure that our teams were emotionally and physically well. We're clear because we're in crisis mode against one common enemy. We have one problem and one thing to solve. So clarity creates that singular problem that we can all solve together. But do you have to wait for a crisis to get that forced clarity? No, you do not. You can make every single goal as clear as the crisis mode goal and get all hands on deck when you need it. You have to give your team a clear focus. A clear goal will help motivate them to hit it because they know exactly where to go individually and as a group. Now, clarity also allows you individually and your team as individuals to tie their motivations to it. I have mentioned a couple of times now that you start with clarity and your motivation will tie to it, right? That's kind of been peppered throughout. And some of that you do have to do intentionally. And we will talk through that in these later videos. But some of it happens even without the curiosity, even without all of the communication. It actually happens in your brain. Neuroplasticity is your brain's ability to create new pathways for neurons that travel in the brain, also known as you can learn something new. So, when your brain is designed in this beautifully intelligent way that ours is, not only does your brain want to create these new pathways, but it also wants to make them habit as soon as possible. That means that you can train your brain simply by telling it what you want to accomplish, what the goal is that you've set out for, and you will get better at hitting that goal over time. So, even if those Walmart employees don't fully understand what they get out of everyday low prices, when they know that that is the goal, when they have complete clarity that that is the table stake, they do start moving toward it. And eventually, it starts to happen on autopilot. Employees start making decisions based on cost efficiency because that's their new pathway that's been developed. It's the same, like we said before, when you are getting into your vehicle. It would be really hard for your brain to process if you got in your vehicle and you just drove. The very first time you came to an intersection, heck, the very first time you came to the end of your driveway, you would have to make the intentional decision of left or right. But when you know where you're going, you start to just do it automatically. That is that neuroplasticity in your brain. The first few times you take a left out of the driveway, go straight at the next stop sign, and take a right, your brain starts to develop that as a habit. You can do the same thing with your goals as you can do with that destination in your vehicle. Now, all of that's great around clarity, but you will need more than clarity to motivate your team. Heck, you will need your people to be able to motivate your team because that's how motivation works, right? As I mentioned in the beginning, you can't actually motivate them. So while you can start making an impact with clarity, you're only going to make small and slow progress that way until you encourage them to actually motivate themselves. We started that gently in our speech about cleaning, right? You can get the sleepover, you can have the team party, you can get projects off the list when you clean this house, right? We started to link that. But this gentle shift can become more like a tidal wave when you start intentionally tying motivations and then communicating it consistently. It all starts with dropping your assumptions and getting curious. So, next week, we will dig into how to uncover motivators through curiosity and tie them to the goal. After decades of doing this work, I have yet to see a personal motivation that could not be tied to a professional goal. It just takes curiosity to get there. All right, my friends, I cannot wait to dig more into how to motivate your team and build that curiosity next week. We will see you then.